And she travels with an interpreter.
Yeah.
And they asked her what I wanted to ask her. You read lips very well and you speak very well. Why do you travel with an interpreter? And she said, because I get tired.
Oh, that
explained a lot to me, because I'd be having conversations with my mother, and she'd kind of wander off, and I would think, gee, I must not be very interesting. Yeah. But it wasn't that I was boring. She just got tired, and she just kind of wandered off. There's only so long you can do that. So
yeah, I would imagine it's rough on the eyes, and trying to concentrate. Even with your brain, it just says, okay, that's it, I'm done.
I'm done, goodbye. I'm done, I had enough, goodbye.
Yeah. Write me a letter.
I was just going to say that. I was just going to say, write me a letter.
Well, I also read that you had your phone and doorbell hooked up to lights so your parents would know if someone was calling or was at the door. Now, how does that work? Are there different colored lights, or like one light means this and two lights, going off mean that?
I have to tell you, you're the first one that ever asked about colored lights, and I think I love that. I wish there were. That's a really good idea, as a matter of fact. But they used light bulbs. So basically, when I thought about it, the light bulbs were in lamps. There were certain lamps that were really for the telephone. And we had a piece of sculpture that my grandparents had where this woman is leaning over something that looks kind of like a bonfire, but the bonfire was wired to be a light. So those lights were for the telephone. But they were all regular bulbs, so they were all the same color. The lights for the doorbell were over the doors, like over a door frame. So every room in the house, the bathroom, every room in the house had a light. So when the phone rang, the lights went off, and sometimes then the doorbell would ring, and all the lights were going off, and they really couldn't tell what it was. And I'm running around trying to answer the door and stop the lights and stuff, because my mother would get very nervous because she thinks there's a short circuit and the house is going to burn down. So we're trying to answer everything, and my father says answer the phone. My mother says answer the door, and what was really interesting was Halloween. Because those kids would come to the door at night, and once they pushed that bell and saw the lights go on, they just
fascinated them.
Pushing it, and then some wise guy would find the side door, so they would all be going off, and we're running around throwing them candy to get them to stop pushing the doorbell.
I would have put a sign out saying, on vacation, don't ring the doorbell, you're not getting candy.
That is not a bad idea. I'm really sitting here thinking, why didn't we do that?
Yeah.
That's a very good idea. Not 50 years too late, but it's a very good idea.
Well, you should have gotten in contact with me then.
Yeah, really? Hello?
Oh, my gosh. Yeah, I can imagine, though. Now, as far as the phone goes, you said your father would answer the phone. Was he able to hear somebody?
Oh, no, my father would tell me to answer the phone.
Oh, tell you.
He would never answer the phone.
Okay, so neither one of them.
And at that time there were no devices or anything. It was just the phone, so it was always me.
Yeah, so I can imagine how crazy you were, I guess, at times with going about, trying to look. Well, then again, it's your daily life. You probably were so used to it, and you thought it was normal for pretty much anybody.
That is a very good point, because when you grow up that way, it does seem normal until a little later you look around and see, geez, this is a little weird. Other children did not do what I did. A lot of kids, when they grow up, they have the luxury of being afraid to talk on the phone.
Right.
I did not have that. I had to talk on the phone.
Right.
And you also, other kids can be shy with strangers. You're standing with your parents, and somebody's, like the doctor maybe is talking to your parents, and you kind of have your thumb in your mouth, hanging out behind them. Couldn't do that, because I was the one talking to the grown-ups and telling my mother or father what they were saying.
Right.
So it's a very different way to grow up. You don't have that luxury.
Right. Did it ever make you feel like you didn't have a childhood because you had to do this all the time?
Looking back, yeah. And my mother said that much later on. She said, my kids had to grow up very fast. But you don't feel that when you're in it, when you're going through it. It just seems normal. Of course, people did say that I was a little strange because I stare at people when they're talking. I'm just used to it.
Yeah. Now, how did that affect you in school?
No, I was fine in school. I mean, although I was more used to talking to people one-on-one than in a group. And also, my parents did not socialize with hearing people.
Okay.
So I didn't have, like, little play dates, you know, with the local parents and everybody getting together with the parents and the kids playing on the floor. I did not have that. So I really didn't make friends or play with groups of kids until I started school. But I was a reader, and that was my favorite thing. I mean, I love to read. And it was more comfortable for me to do that because it was hard to bring friends home. They didn't really know how to talk to my parents. Sometimes they make fun of my father. And my mother was very critical of hearing people, so it was a little tricky bringing people home. Right.
Now, how did you go from growing up this way to deciding on being an actress, especially if you felt comfortable just talking one-on-one instead of groups, and definitely as an actress in a play, you're talking to groups of people?
Well, that's a very good point. I don't like being in groups. However, when I'm on stage, it's like the audience is one person.
Okay.
They're not all talking to me. You know, so we're not all talking to each other. It's like I'm addressing one person, like one person called the audience. If I'm on stage and it's the audience, I love that. Right. And it started actually when I was in school, and I was in a history class, and I started arguing all kinds of political nonsense or whatever you do when you're a kid. And the teacher was smart enough to know that I really didn't care about that. I just liked the drama of the whole thing. So instead of telling me I should go study history, so he said, well, why don't you just go in the acting class? And that was fine with me. And I loved that. I did love that.
Did you do a lot of plays? When was this, in grammar school
in high school? Junior high school and high school. But when I went to college, you know, my mother considered that anything like that, like acting or art, you know, the art that I was doing, it's just a hobby, hobby.
Right.
Have to find something safe. So I was sort of studying to be a teacher, which I basically had no interest in whatsoever.
Yeah.
And I was in graduate school and was going out with somebody who realized that I really didn't want to do this. And he was the first one that ever said to me, if you didn't do this, what do you want to do? And nobody had ever said that to me before. And I instantly said I would study acting. And he said, why don't you just take a year off and do that? And I said, okay. It's just like, okay. That's as fast as anyone has ever talked me into anything. I said, okay. I got out of there so fast. That's it for this. Thank you. I'm out.
Oh, my God.
I got a job, and at that time in New York, you could actually find an apartment. So I got a job, I got an apartment, I got a cat, and started a new life.
Right. Now, what was your first part?
You know, for some reason, I just flashed on this, and I still have it. I have, no one's going to remember this, a Jerry Mahoney puppet. I can't even, I don't even remember seeing that on TV, but it was this little puppet that you mouse one up and down, and I brought that thing to school. And I had this whole little act that I did on stage. I think that was the first thing I ever did. I think that was the first thing I ever did.
I'm not quite sure who that is, but
yeah, I don't remember who the puppeteer was, but I know that's what this thing is. That still sits up in my closet.
Yeah,
he's still with me. He's going to be here forever. I think that was basically my first part. And I did go to camp one year, and I had a little part in Brigadoon, and I just love that. I just totally love that. The only thing I liked in camp was either being on stage or on a horse. Those two things.
Yeah. Well, you could do both, you know.
Yes, and I like the horse part because you didn't have to be in the sun. I never understood why people play games in the hot sun. I still don't understand that.
No, no. I mean, I went to camp too, and we did a lot of things in the sun. But as a kid, I think it didn't bother us as much as it does once you grow up, and then you're like, oh, it's too hot, it's too humid. I don't want to do that now.
Yeah, yeah.
And horses, I'm glad you like them and you can ride them. I had one bad experience, and then years later found out I was really allergic to them. So I guess it's a good thing that I didn't enjoy horseback riding.
Yeah, that would be good, because that would be rather a conflict.
Yeah.
that would not work. Although I will tell you that I could ride when I was very young. And I tried it again with this same fellow that I'm talking about. I had forgotten that he was from North Dakota. He got on that horse. He looked like a cowboy. And I said, uh-oh, I thought I could ride, but look at that. Mm-hmm. And we rode for that day. I got off, and I walked funny for about 4 days.
Oh, yeah.
I said, I don't think I want to do this anymore. This was okay when I weighed 50 pounds and I was a string bean. This is not so okay now. I can't. Yeah. I'm not quite as flexible as I was then.
Especially when the horse gallops. Oh my gosh, it juggled my insides. It was horrible for me.
Yeah. Well, one of them did that to me and threw me off on purpose.
Oh.
Yeah. And I hit the ground, and I saw him coming around after me, and I rolled under the fence. I never told anybody that I was actually out cold, because I would do anything to get back on that horse, and I did.
Oh, no.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, my gosh. Well, I'm so glad you were okay, and you were, well enough to get back on it. But, my gosh, it's scary.
Yeah, but, again, that's the wonderful thing about being really young, because then you're just really dumb.
Yeah, that's true.
You just do anything. The consequences just don't occur to you, Just get back on a horse. Why not?
Just like riding a bike. How many times do you fall off of that thing before you actually get it, But
yeah.
You still keep getting on. And it's just something that you want to do, and there's nothing that's going to stop you.
Right. Right.
So, well, back to your show. Now, what do you want the audience to take away from the show after they've seen it?
One of the things I wanted to say about that this is kind of a universal theme. On the surface, it's about deaf and hearing, but the more universal thing about this, it's really about being an outsider, because the deaf world and the hearing world are very separate, and I was really an outsider to my parents' world. But anybody can feel like an outsider. I mean, there are a lot of places, a lot of ways to be that can happen. It can be the color of your skin. It can be being gay, being too big or you're too little. Whatever it is that makes you different can make you an outsider and make you feel excluded, and especially as a child of very little value. But what I want people to take away is that we're all unique, and we all have to learn to really value ourselves for whatever we are, and that way we can we find our own voices and we find our own place, and there's certainly a place for everyone.
That's wonderful. I mean, I wouldn't have thought of that until you said it. So now we're even.
Yeah. Okay. And I also wanted to let people know that somebody hears them. Somebody's listening. I get this.
Yeah.
I get this, and I've had people come up and talk to me just about this. Well, I wasn't. Hearing from deaf, but I was this, or I was this, or I was this, and I always felt like I didn't belong. And that's what is so important about this, and why we wanted to do it.
Okay, then you just answered my next question. I was wondering if anybody ever came up to you after the show to talk to you about it.
Oh, yeah. The first show, I had a boy come up to me with hearing aids, and but apparently he had deaf parents, and he said, I'm so glad you did this, because now my boyfriend knows what I went through.
Right.
And the most important thing, kind of the most thrilling thing for me, is someone who didn't actually see the show, but he had read about it, and he sent me an email, and he said, I'm in a similar situation. My parents are deaf. I feel really alone, and it would really mean a lot to me if you would talk to me. And I didn't know what that was about, and I sent him a note back. I said, of course. It turns out he's a senior in high school, and he had deaf parents. And I thought because of the